And I've been exercising every day now, and I've changed what I was eating too already, and I'm probably going to have to schedule an appointment with my doctor about this to make sure that I'm okay.
It's scary, man. It's scary, right? And like, I know like people like to make fun of it, like, oh yeah, well, I'm just gonna play video games and order fast food, ha ha ha. Like, I'm fat or I'm out of shape, like, ha ha ha. It's funny. It's like, it's not funny, man. It's hell. It's like, stuff can happen. It's serious, dude.
Do you know that feeling when you can't fully enjoy what you're doing because in the back of your mind you know you should be doing something else? I'm in my late 20s, slowly starting to get out of shape. I know I'll have to start exercising eventually. But a day only has 24 hours and I want to spend all of my free time playing World of Warcraft. Well, it turns out there was a solution to my problem and it appeared to me more than a year ago, when the classic version of our beloved game was relaunched once again. And a guy stood up, gathered everyone, and said,
Evening, bitches.
I think we're all lucky to be able to witness the story of OnlyFans 2 unfold. I can only imagine what the content creators involved in those legendary events were feeling, considering how excited I was just watching from the other side of the screen. And while it's always fun to watch new players struggle to grasp basic mechanics like mana management, this time the experienced players weren't far behind when it came to entertaining the crowd. You see, by that point, the Sweats knew the game so well they needed extra challenges just to feel something again. These challenges led to some funny deaths, sure, but they were also inspiring. For me, one guy especially stood out. The challenge he came up with, oh boy, the creativity, the courage, the audacity. I'm talking, of course, about the one and the only Grace. In case you don't know who Grace for Days is, he's a classic Andy who blew up in popularity after this clip.
Into another multi. Into an aim.
It's low threat.
Oh, I didn't pop CDs.
AK threat. AK threat.
Ah! Boom! Ah! Ah! Ah!
Katana, you go out.
Okay, I get it. Classic raids aren't that difficult, but still, it's hardcore. This dude shows up with 6 abilities on his bars and uses them... how exactly?
The Link is an app that lets you use your body and voice instead of mouse and keyboard. You stand in front of your webcam, strike a pose, capture it, bind it to a button press, and voila! The next time the software detects the pose, it will virtually press the button for you. It also has a bunch of built-in features like jumping and walking recognition, which will become very important later in the video. It's like a PC version of Xbox Kinect from 2010, except it's much more configurable and works with the old webcam you probably have laying around in your drawer since 2007 for no reason. The Link costs $20 on Steam and it's developed and maintained by just one guy, who is an absolute gem, by the way. I recently reported a bug on his Discord channel before going to bed, and by the time my lazy ass finished breakfast the next morning, he had already replied and fixed it. When I saw Grace using the Link for the first time, I knew I had to make it work for me. This was my chance to start exercising without compromising in World of Warcraft, and it would make the experience even more immersive. No downsides, right? This is one of my first attempts playing with the Link. It took me hours to set everything up, and that was just the beginning. I don't want to go into details of how I configured everything, at least not in this video, but I think there is one detail worth mentioning: the camera control. The Link has a built-in feature called wrist to mouse, which lets you, just as the name suggests, use your wrist to control your mouse. But it comes with several problems. First of all, it's very laggy, especially if you haven't upgraded your hardware in years. On my machine, the Link manages around 15 scans of my body per second on average, which is fine for pressing keybinds, but for mouse movement, 15 Hz just isn't enough. For comparison, an average gaming mouse usually operates at 1000 Hz. The second problem is the immersion. The whole point of motion capture is to make it feel like you and your character are the one. So when I think of a pose for a spell like Eviscerate, for example, I have the freedom to take inspiration from my character animation or get creative and turn it into something that feels right to me for using this particular spell. The point is, when I take the pose and see my character respond, I want these actions to feel connected. Keeping that in mind, let's look at what my character is doing versus what I'm doing when we turn around. In my opinion, it takes away a lot of the immersion. I could probably get used to it, but every time I tried, it felt like a reminder that I'm not a rogue on an adventure in Azeroth, but a dude approaching midlife crisis at insane speed, playing a rogue. The third and the most important problem for me is that you have to move as little as possible while using your wrist as a mouse, because otherwise you get a lot of unwanted camera shake. Now you might be asking, why is keeping your hands steady once in a while is such a big problem? Other people like Grace don't seem to have any problems with it. Well, let me remind you that the main goal of this experiment for me was to start exercising. Walking in place for 1 or 2 hours while occasionally throwing your hands left and right isn't really exercising. Sure, it's better than nothing, but unless you are doing it for 10 hours straight every day, it's closer to buying groceries than to working out. So instead of doing everything in a semi-lazy manner, I have to move with intensity. I have to be running in place instead of walking in place. And running is what makes using the wrist to mouse feature problematic. Fortunately, a Joy-Con gives me exactly what I need. It's small and lightweight, does not restrict your movement, and has native support in WoW. So we solved the camera control problem, but there is another, even bigger issue on our path to a real workout. Remember the built-in walking recognition feature? Well, the Link doesn't care if you're running or walking. In fact, it works slightly better when you walk, which means I have to constantly force myself to run. This might be easy at the beginning when I'm still fresh and full of energy, but once fatigue kicks in, you need willpower to keep going with the same intensity. Well, if I had willpower, I'd probably be hitting the gym, and this video wouldn't exist in the first place. So, how do we solve this problem? How is one supposed to run in place with a consistent pace for a long period of time without thinking about it?
Ты ебанулся?
Turns out I was the only one who thought keeping a treadmill in the middle of our 30 square meters apartment was a good idea. Fortunately, my grandma who lives nearby had a spare room, which I gladly occupied. Okay, back to the setup. The treadmill is great for transforming a gaming session into an actual workout, right? But how do I stop? The idea is to constantly jump on and off the moving treadmill to start and stop moving in-game, and it's really scary. While we can't make it completely safe, we can at least reduce the risk of breaking ankles by making the treadmill and the floor level with each other. This way, I won't be jumping up and down, but rather just spread my legs and bring them back together instead. My initial plan was to use 2 of these fitness steps people use in the gyms for... But the big ones are quite pricey. Do you know what we do in the third world countries when we get greedy? We find some sticks and stones outside and build whatever we need ourselves. So after taking some measurements, borrowing a saw from my always drunk neighbor, getting $20 worth of wood and spending a whole weekend outside, I can proudly present to you my fully functional, extra safe, budget friendly, workout ready, ultimate gaming setup.
Are you kidding me?
Okay, enough preparation. I know what you really want to know. Is this actually viable? Well, it depends on how much you're willing to make it work. During the first 50 hours or so, I spent about half the time in the Link, WoW, or even Steam settings. Sometimes the software didn't work the way I expected it to. Sometimes it was frustrating to find a fix for the problem. Often it was challenging to find a good pose for the new ability or consumable. Since I decided to play a rogue who can use most abilities while moving, I had to make sure my poses could be triggered consistently while running on the treadmill. but I can't express how rewarding it felt when I started getting into a rhythm. You know how in Classic WoW you have to level your weapon skill to stop missing all the time, and the higher it gets, the more often you hit? I experienced something similar with every new ability I learned. Not only did I have to pay the class trainer, I actually had to train it. Every time I used it, I got better at it, and noticing that I was killing mobs faster because my technique improved felt like next level character progression. The point is, it took me a lot of time to make it playable, and I'm still probably only half as good as a toddler with a mouse and a keyboard. But the process of learning is genuinely enjoyable and fulfilling. After some time, I was able to confidently take 2 mobs off my level, kite by performing jump turns, and even land kicks like this one. Ha! There's just one big but. All of this learning was happening on a hardcore server.
I believe I can fly. I believe I can touch the sky. I think about it every night and day. Spread my wings and fly away. I believe I can soar. I see me running through that open door. I believe I can fly. I believe I can fly. I believe I can fly.
This day, I asked the creator of the link how exactly the jump recognition feature works. It doesn't track your legs as I initially thought. Instead, it recognizes a sudden upward movement of your upper body. Here I am checking my gear using my mouse at my desk. Before going back to the treadmill, I decided to make my character face the right direction. Then, on my way back, I stepped on the fancy custom-made platform I've built. My upper body makes a sudden upwards movement and my fate is sealed. Things like that will inevitably happen if you decide to try out the link. Just like they did back in 2004, when you were a kid and maybe still learning how to hold a mouse. That learning is what made it fun back then, and it's what makes it fun for me now. I haven't played in a long time, at least not with the link. But can you guess what I didn't stop doing? Running. It's hard to believe that just 1 year ago my passion for sports was almost completely gone, and now I'm running and actually enjoying it. All of it starting from a silly idea of training while gaming. I even participated in a 10-kilometer run organized by my city and managed to finish in 1 hour and 15 minutes, which is terrible by pretty much all running standards, but I'm on track to run the same distance in under an hour this month. And the main reason I enjoyed it so much, even without playing World of Warcraft, is that I never stopped thinking about World of Warcraft. I was just preparing my body for the ultimate challenge.
You are not prepared!